The November air was frigid, biting at Mark's exposed skin as he struggled with the heavy apartment door. He finally wrestled it open, the hinges groaning in protest. The hallway smelled faintly of mildew and old cigarettes, a musty welcome to his new home. Mark stepped inside, his breath misting in the air, and flicked on the light switch. The apartment was sparsely furnished, just as he'd requested. A worn brown sofa sat against one wall, its cushions caving in slightly. A rickety kitchen table occupied the corner, 2 chairs tucked beneath it. The air hung heavy with the silence of a place long uninhabited. Mark placed his meager belongings on the counter, a shiver running down his spine. This was it. A fresh start, a place of solitude. At least that's what he had hoped for. He unpacked mechanically, the silence of the apartment pressing in on him. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the old windows in their frames. Mark finished unpacking and settled onto the sofa, the springs creaking beneath him. He closed his eyes, attempting to ignore the growing unease in the pit of his stomach. He was alone. He was safe. Or so he told himself. Nightfall came quickly, blanketing the city in an oppressive darkness. Mark sat in the flickering lamplight, a book lying forgotten in his lap. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of eyes boring into him from the shadows. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind against the windows sent a jolt of fear through him. He tried to focus on the book, but the words swam before his eyes. A strange sound, like a faint whisper, drifted from the corner of the room. He looked up, his pulse quickening. The sound came again, this time a little louder, emanating from the air vent near the ceiling. Mark slowly rose from the couch, his gaze fixed on the vent. The whispering grew louder, forming into discernible words. "He doesn't know yet," the voice rasped, each syllable sending a chill down Mark's spine. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. Fear, cold and paralyzing, gripped him. He was not alone. "He's listening now," the voice hissed from the vent, each word laced with malice. Mark's skin prickled with terror. He forced himself to move, his limbs heavy and unresponsive. He grabbed the flashlight from his bag, his hand trembling as he flicked it on. The beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. He took a hesitant step toward the vent, his heart pounding against his ribs. He had to know. He had to see. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, he ripped the vent cover off and shone the flashlight inside. The beam illuminated the dark recesses of the ventilation shaft, and there, in the deepest shadows, he saw them. 2 eyes, gleaming with an unnatural light, stared back at him. Mark recoiled in horror, the flashlight slipping from his grasp and clattering to the floor. The eyes blinked slowly, their gaze filled with a chilling intelligence. He stumbled back, his mind reeling. What had he gotten himself into? This was no ordinary apartment, this was a nightmare. Mark scrambled backward, fear lending him a burst of speed. He needed to get out, to escape the suffocating confines of the apartment. But as he turned to flee, a voice, cold and close, whispered directly into his ear. "Found him!" He spun around, searching frantically for the source of the voice. The apartment was empty, or so it seemed. The air hung heavy with a palpable sense of dread. He was trapped, hunted by something he couldn't see, couldn't comprehend. Then, he noticed it. A single white envelope lay on the floor where he had dropped his bag. It hadn't been there before. He picked it up, his fingers trembling. His name was scrawled on the front in a spidery, unfamiliar handwriting. With a growing sense of foreboding, he slowly opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper contained a message, typed in a stark, unforgiving font. "You were warned," it read. "Now, you will pay."